Good morning, folks. Welcome to the NFL Sunday Morning Show post Super Bowl edition. I'll be the host for today, Nicky Stees. For some odd reason, my camera. Yeah, so we're going to go with this instead. But we're still here. It's still doing the show the same way. I'll be the host for today. Bo, James, thanks for joining me. And we'll kick this thing off. Bo, it was your Seahawks winning the Super Bowl, so congratulations. If you have a few words you want to say, go right ahead. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, wrapping up a pretty amazing season. And as much as people talked about the defense, I think there was it might have got underplayed as dominant as they were. Even watching them every week, I didn't realize that their numbers were quite where they were. Nicky, if you want to throw the slide up there that says power rankings, I don't know why it labeled it that way, but these are the numbers between the 13 championship season of the Legion of Boom versus this year's defense, and they are really, really close. The main discrepancy between the two is the takeaways. Legion of Boom was a far superior, ball hawk, but otherwise you're looking at 14 points for 17 points a game. This year's was actually better as far as total yards, significantly better against the run. Sacks were a little bit better. Third down conversions were a little bit better. So, I mean, really the main difference between the two was the takeaways. But, I knew this was a dominant defense, but I didn't realize the numbers stacked up quite that much, especially when you think the Legion of Boom is lauded as one of the top 5 defenses all time.
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison right there because they are pretty close and they kind of go hand in hand. But, I mean, it depends on where you lean toward. I mean, that's personal fan preference, but I know the Legion of Boom were the more marketable of the two, but both defenses were really great.
Yeah, no, if you're just going after numbers, you're like, oh, wow, these things really stat. Now, if you're going after star power, obviously Legion of Boom was wildly different. But yeah, when you're just stacking stat for stat, pretty impressive what they were able to do this year.
Yeah, so absolutely. And they played a huge integral role in your team winning the Super Bowl. So now we'll start off, James. This is where you hit the nail right on the head. You predicted that Kenneth Walker would win MVP, so congratulations on getting that prediction right. And as far as score predictions, none of us really got the actual score right, but I said 27-13, and that was just a few points shy of being correct. It was 29-13. So now we're going to get to your guys' overall thoughts on the Super Bowl.
It's funny. You picked Walker to get the MVP. I thought Walker was going to get about 60 yards. He had that in 2 runs on that one drive. I was like, oh, well, I guess he's going to have an okay day.
I was holding on to it all day. I was like, oh, man, this guy's going to make me look like a genius.
Right?
Especially for any of you that watched the show last year, too, because last year I had Cooper DeJean getting 2 pick sixes, and he ended up getting 1 pick six. So I was like, oh, I'm on a little bit of a heater right now on Super Bowls.
Oh, yeah.
But I was happy to see it, man. Being a Steelers fan and a Patriots fan have been pretty obnoxious over the last 20 years. And the last thing I wanted to see was them going back to power and being that high and mighty again. So I love the way they won the game with awesome defense, with a dominant run game that was very successful. And for a team that passed the ball really well all year long, the passing game was not the reason that Seattle won this game. It wasn't the reason they lost it either. They did just enough in that game. But I was really impressed with Sam Darnold's ability to break loose of a sack attempt in this game. He was really strong in the pocket, very good at making that one step or two, one direction or another within the pocket. And when somebody got their hands on him, he was able to just like twist his shoulders and shrug these dudes off. And people just were not getting him to the ground. They were hitting him, but they were not getting him to the ground. He was stepping through it, delivering the throw, and sometimes the throw was inaccurate, but he was at least getting out of it, not taking the sack, and then getting the ball out. And that is an understated thing in this game and a big difference between the two. Because when the Seattle defense hit Drake May went down. But when the Patriots defense hit Sam Darnold, Sam said, nah, man, I'm good. And he stayed up and just shrugged it right off. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's neat to see his reclamation project going from last year being so successful with Minnesota and this year being so successful with Seattle. Makes him look like a genius too, because he had kind of his choice. Going into free agency, there were a lot of teams that wanted Sam Darnold, and he makes the decision to go to Seattle. Obviously, a very good decision for him. So yeah, I was happy for you, Bo. Happy for all the Seattle fans. Happy that I look smart for once in a while here, and just a fun game overall, man. I love good defense. That's part of just being a Steelers fan. You love good defense, and that was just a swarming, awesome defense, man. The way they timed their blitzes just perfectly over and over in this game was just a thing of beauty.
It's funny because you were talking about Sam getting out of some of those hits and the throws not being completely accurate. The Patriots are really lucky the front seven was getting home, because that one over the top to JSN would have been a walk-in touchdown because nobody went with him, so they're lucky that they had someone on him, and then he got lit up on the end of that too. And, but if that thing is 4 yards shorter, this game is wildly different. Walker could have had another score if it wasn't for a holding call. Like it was, and I always hate holding calls like that aren't next to the play. So you're just like, man, that was not necessary. But all of a sudden you're looking at a full-on blowout if either one of those hit. And this is I expected more out of the Patriots, I guess. The defense did what I thought they would do. They took JSN out of the picture, right? They bracket covered him the whole time. The Seattle defense was really good at stopping the seam routes. One of the things I said I was concerned about, that you could exploit them all year. They had that completely shut down. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like, we watched some film. Let's go.
Speaking of they watched some film, I saw a really cool breakdown somebody had on a tell from the left guard for the Patriots. He was eyeballing his blocking assignment pre-snap. And very clearly the Seattle coaching staff picked up on that, and they were able to time blitzes right through his gap and basically cause a lot of misdirection and have a lot of success blitzing on that side, and that was part of it. Part of it was just beating Will Campbell like a drum every single play, too. That poor dude.
That one sack where you wrapped your arms around the guy and tackled him and the quarter. Like, come on.
Yeah.
You can't lose your assignment like that.
Yeah, you're getting big boyed at that point.
Oh, yeah.
But now the next question is about Kenneth Walker's future. Do you think it's a bright future, Bo?
A bright future? Of course. In Seattle? I don't know. He's a free agent, just won the Super Bowl MVP. So teams are going to throw some money at him. Seattle historically does not overpay for running backs. It's also why they have a tendency to draft multiple. Right. So you drafted Kenneth Walker in the second round. The next year you draft Charbonnet in the second round. I would not be surprised if they allow Kenneth Walker to move on. And, Charbonnet is going to come back about halfway through the year. Halani, although not amazing, did maximize his touches. I wouldn't be shocked to see Seattle draft another guy in the second or third round. Now they only have 4 draft picks this year, so that is a little bit of a concern, but they only have a first, second, third, and a sixth. That's it. Oddly enough, not the worst draft haul that they've had. Back in 2021, they had the least amount in NFL history with only 3 picks. So it's not like something, and they bombed all 3 of them. So good job. But, so it's not a scenario that they're not familiar with. So they may go ahead and draft another running back, move on from him. Another guy I wouldn't be surprised if is gone is Tariq Woolen. He had his meltdown in the NFC Championship game. He tends to be out of position a lot. He was again during the Super Bowl. That first score was him just getting torched. And, as soon as you saw the route, you're like, like they hadn't even thrown the ball yet. You're just like, man, that's 6. Like, so yeah, no, Seattle's going to lose a couple of players. Most impactful though will probably be Walker.
Yeah, I agree with Bo 100% on this. When somebody wins Super Bowl MVP, usually there's if they hit free agency immediately afterwards, it's like a bidding war in free agency. And it would be kind of crazy for Seattle to overpay to retain him. Not that I think that he's a lesser talent. Obviously, I think very highly of him, or I wouldn't have picked him as my Super Bowl MVP candidate. I really like his running style. I think he's pretty awesome. I remember watching him at Michigan State when he took Connor Hayward's job from him. But he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid, and I would expect him to get paid very well because of a combination of athleticism, performance on a big stage like this, and his age. He's only like 25, isn't he, Bo? Like, he's a young cat still. Yeah, so that's just super ideal for teams, seeing a guy coming off of playing so well right now. He's got the low center of gravity that you're looking for. He's very good at making people miss in the hole. That's a real talent right there when you're in between 2 blockers right in the middle of the line of scrimmage and somebody has you dead to the rights and you're able to juke them up and make them miss. Now, that's an impressive talent. So I figure somebody's going to pay him a lot of money this offseason, and I expect him to go elsewhere. I'm sure he'd love to stay, but it's just going to be one of those things that it will be unrealistic for them to spend as much as what other teams are willing to spend on him. It's tough once you win that Super Bowl trying to keep that nucleus together. Everybody wants pieces of your team now. You're just in the biggest spotlight on the planet, really, and everybody saw how talented all your guys are. So anybody that's a free agent, they're going to do their darndest to try to peel those key pieces away. And some of them you just kind of have to let go. But, yeah, I mean, Charbonnet carried a lot of the load this year anyway, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, is Charbonnet was on the precipice of taking over running back 1 duties anyway, right? And Walker has had an injury history here in Seattle. So, he was mostly healthy this year, but, he hasn't been through the course of his career so far. But when you look at the teams that have a ton of cap space, this is where I think, they get outbid, is there's this Raiders team that has our offensive coordinator as their head coach that has an insane amount of money to play with. There's also this team that we saw in the Super Bowl that has an insane amount of money to play with, and they're not paying a quarterback anytime soon. So both those teams could get better with Walker on the roster. I understand the Raiders have Genty, but imagine a dual-headed monster with Genty and Walker. That's a scary running back room. Mm-hmm. So there's some teams that could throw some big money at him that won't tank their cap, whereas Seattle just doesn't have that much to play with. They are in a favorable cap position, right? I think they're like top 10 when it comes to cap space, but you're not going to bury yourself in a running back when you have another one. One that you were basically trying to give those first team duties to anyway. So yeah, unfortunately I don't see him being there. And Donna, you let him leave because of money. Like, it's simple as that. If this was any other sport, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. He'd be coming back. But because football has a hard salary cap, you can manipulate it a little bit, but like, the cap is the cap. So, unfortunately, that's why you see some of the parity, though, right? Is because everybody has that same cap. So unless you're dysfunctional, Jets, Browns, looking at you, you can right the ship, because you're going to get opportunities. Whereas when you're talking about baseball, basketball, you're just like, oh yeah, the salary cap, that's cute. We're just going to pay more.
And there's always teams in the league that try to circumvent the cap and do crazy thing with dead years at the end of their contract and stuff. But that's how you end up in a situation like the New Orleans Saints did, where every year the offseason hits and you're $100 million over the cap already before free agency even starts, and you have to go through and cut all these guys off your team that you'd rather keep, but you're so far in the hole because you manipulated the cap in a way that you can, but will catch up to you. Once it caught up to New Orleans, they haven't been able to really form a good team since. They're working their way back out of it. They're finally getting closer and closer every year, but that can put you in a really bad financial situation for 5 to 7 years when you do something like that.
No question. And it's only dumb if it doesn't work, though, because when the Rams did it, you got a ring, and you're like, y'all are geniuses. And the Saints do it, and you're like, oh, you guys you messed up. Because, I mean, they went all in and barely made the playoffs that year.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, and well, for Kenneth Walker, we just got to see. It's just kind of a shame, but that is the business side of it, and that's the new normal now. As far as the bright future, he'll definitely have a bright future. But here's the key with all running backs for the bright future part. Durability, because we've seen plenty of talented running backs either have their peak cut short due to injury, like a Priest Holmes, and ironically, his successor, Larry Johnson, or you have guys that stay healthy longer, like Marshawn Lynch, and had a peak last a little longer, or Frank Gore, who he played past his peak and was still productive. But that part ultimately, how long will his future be bright depends on his ability to stay healthy. Sometimes running backs are just one major injury away from their peak being shortened.
And I think that's why a lot of teams stopped paying them such big money,
Yes.
Is that, oftentimes for guys in that position, once they hit 29, 30 years old, the speed starts to drop off, and your ability to get to that hole before it starts to close is really lessened. And that's what it's all about, is getting to the hole and through the hole before those linebackers or safeties can get there and close it. So, yeah, it's tough. I mean, I got high hopes for the kid because he's young. I think he's going to get a good payday because of that. If he were coming off a Super Bowl MVP and he was 30 years old, I would say there's a decent chance that he'd be staying in Seattle, because I don't think he'd be getting overpaid in free agency. But a combination of athleticism and his age, he's likely to get paid. I'd expect him over $10 million a year.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if he doesn't get that somewhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, if you're Seattle, then at the same time, you take a look at another, potential free agent in Breece Hall, right? Because him staying healthy as the number one back hasn't worked out, but he'd be splitting duties with Charbonnet, so that could be a thing. And you could get Breece Hall for, a relative deal compared to Kenneth Walker.
Mm-hmm.
And Donna, Nicky does speak. I mean, he probably was playing solitaire over there, but
I mean, some backs, hey, sometimes some backs are better as the number 2 than the number 1.
Oh yeah.
It's just part of the game. But now we move on to the next question. Was this a boring game, or was this a good defensive game?
I mean, I was a defensive player.
We couldn't gain any rhythm, field position. We got to get into drives better offensively. Defensively, we've been really good against the run lately, and we weren't. And, again, we were just playing catch up. And we did a great job in the red zone, and we competed. But unfortunately, I think the turnovers, ultimately costed us. And I appreciate the way that the guys offensively battled and competed, but just not enough consistent, execution.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly thought this was a way more lopsided Super Bowl than the score indicates.
Yes.
Because New England scored all their points in garbage time at the end of the game. when Seattle was no longer in need of being as aggressive as they had been the whole game. So to me, it was a dominant defensive performance, and I like seeing those. I love seeing a blowout when it goes in the direction that I like it going. So I don't mind that one bit either. I didn't need it to be a competitive game the whole way through to be able to enjoy it. I think the first half of the game was probably a little less exciting for the casual football fan because most of the scores were field goals. The Patriots couldn't get anything going at all on offense. So if you're someone who needs touchdowns and big plays in order to enjoy a game, that first half was probably pretty boring to you. But yeah, you needed to stay and pay attention because it got a lot better in the second half.
It was funny because watching the first half, you had all those kicks by Myers. You go into halftime, I'm like, I think the kicker might get the MVP. I mean, he did end up setting a Super Bowl record of 5 field goals, which, that's wild in itself.
Yeah, we had some real conversation about that on our Steelers show when we were recapping it yesterday. That that should have been a very real possibility. Underrated too, I would say that punter for you guys, man. How many times did you guys pin them inside the 5-yard line with a coffin corner punt, or downing it inside the 5 with one of the coverage guys, a gunner or whoever it was that got down there first? So overall, the special teams were dominant for Seattle in this game. Just very, very, very good. And that's why they always say there's three sides, right? It's not just offense and defense. The special teams is important, and the special teams constantly put New England in a very long down to go, yardage to go situation to start their drives. And they made sure they at least got scores on these drives. They got in range and they at least got their field goal every single time. And sometimes just grinding away and getting those field goals is still enough for the other team to start feeling, dang, man, like not only can we not get anything going, they're scoring every drive. Might only be field goals, but they're scoring every drive. Like, it's still a defeating feeling on the opposite side when you can't get anything going and the other team is successful.
Well, especially just how much it chews the clock up too.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're just not getting off the field on third downs, and they get down and you hold them out of the end zone, which, is a little bit of a moral victory, but you just keep falling further behind. And then, and then the second half happens and it really opens up. But, that second score by New England was really predicated by that first one, because it looked like they wanted that shutout, and then Reek got torched. And then after that, they're like, okay, prevent defense. Let's just, let's just get the time off the clock now. Our shutout's gone, and they end up giving up another score there. But it didn't seem like they had the same push after that touchdown, that first touchdown.
I mean, hey man, it depends on which way you look at it. I mean, on one hand, both defenses played really good. In New England, to their credit, they did their best they could to contain them, but they held them to field goals in the first half, so they did something. Outside of Kenneth Walker running all over them, they at least were able to keep them out of the end zone. Then once the interceptions, turnovers started to roll in, that was the real game changer where Seattle took away the game. And to your credit, James, it was a lot more lopsided than the final score said. Yeah. It certainly was. So on one hand, it was good for defense. For some people, it might have been boring depending on whether you were neutral or whoever. I mean, obviously for Bo, it was a great game.
Yeah.
Just like last year, it was a great game for me and Mitch.
I just like that it wasn't super stressful, right? By halftime, you were like, New England just can't move the ball. You're just like, okay, like I understand we're not having some huge lead here, but it felt like it didn't matter, right? Like you were looking at that lead and you're like, yeah, I feel pretty confident about this, considering they go like 3 or 5 and out, and you're just like, okay, like I'll take that all day.
Yeah, wasn't it something crazy like New England only had 2 first downs by halftime? Like
Exactly.
it was pretty dominant. They couldn't get anything going. And the first downs were, I think, both big chunk plays. There was like a 20-yard pass and something else that was over 10 yards that just by finishing that play was automatically a first down. But they just couldn't convert, man. And they hate to see it.
There were two things about this. Like one of the predictions that I had did hit was that AJ Barner was going to have some really crucial catches throughout the game. And then obviously he scores that first touchdown. The part that surprised me the most though, was the refs weren't throwing flags at all. Like those guys could go out and mug each other and it did not matter. Right. Like the first half had one penalty for a false start on New England. That was it. And then in the second half, I mean, there was a few of them, but I mean, Job doesn't get one throwing Diggs to the ground after the play. Like that should have been a personal foul right there. And then punches him in the face. I don't know how he's still in the game. But then there was a pass interference on the other side where New England was like, basically just hugging JSN. And you're just like, okay, I mean, we're clearly flags don't matter in this game, which is fine. Like I'm fine with letting these guys play it out. But some of those you're like, I mean, Joe probably should have been tossed out of that game. And then New England would have hoped that because, who got that interception? Oh, Joe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, not that it would matter. If he wasn't there, there was no New England player anywhere remotely close to that. There was 3 other Seahawks that could have got that interception. So had he been kicked out of the game, someone had filled in for him, all things being the same, that's still a pick. But it was pretty crazy that they were just swallowing the whistle. Like they were not calling anything.
I'll tell you what, I'll take that over referees deciding a game,
Oh, no question.
No, nobody wants that nonsense. So as much as we want to see people being able to do their job, it's the fine line. It's such a tough thing to walk. But yeah, I hate seeing a wide receiver get like blatantly pass interfered with and not even be able to run his route. That stuff's annoying.
Yeah, when they're like this and you're like, I feel like you might be impeding his progress.
Yeah,
like
it's just
by the rule. I think that's exactly what it is. Yeah. No, but I mean, if they're doing it on both sides, then I don't care.
Yeah.
Right? Like if your refs are out there and they're just letting them beat each other up, but they're calling it the same either way, cool. All right. You know what the expectation is. Honestly, even if you're calling ticky-tack calls, as long as you're calling it the same way all game, I don't even care about that so much because you know what the expectation is. It'll be annoying, but you're like, okay, I'm not going to get away with this today is what it is. It's when it changes throughout the game. That's when it makes me mad. It's like, okay, this isn't a call all day. Final 2 minutes. Now we're just throwing laundry like nothing else. Like, come on, guys. But fortunately, we didn't have that in this game.
Yep, they just let him go out there and play, and that was one of the positives of it. But now this goes out for all the critics about the game being boring. Would we have gotten a better Super Bowl if the Patriots weren't in it?
I mean, it would have been different. Like, obviously, you're meaning if the Broncos made it instead. In that assumption, you probably also have Bo Nix in the game. So maybe would have been better. You got to keep in mind, the offense for Denver wasn't good, right? Like 3/4 of the game all season, they were a 24th to 26th ranked offense. Like they were terrible. They would just come back in the fourth quarter and win games because their defense was good. New England had a good defense too. So, I mean, I don't know that it would have been wildly different. I think whoever came out of the NFC was probably going to beat any of the AFC teams. I didn't see anyone really in the AFC side from the beginning of the playoffs. I mean, Bills included, that would have beat any of the NFC West teams.
Yeah, let's be real about the other options coming out of the AFC this year. Obviously, Denver's the easy one to point to, but if they somehow pull off that win, we're looking at Jared Stidham starting in the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
That would have been much worse. If Houston makes it in, the way C.J. Stroud was playing in the playoffs, we probably would have seen a record amount of interceptions thrown in.
For real.
So I don't know that would have been any better. Which I guess that brings us to maybe the Bills. It'd be nice to see the Bills actually play well late into the playoffs for once, but we haven't seen that either. The Chiefs were eliminated in November.
I mean,
the AFC didn't have it this year.
Exactly. No, and that's why I say, like, and if Seattle wasn't in it and it was the Rams, like the Rams would have run rough shot off those guys too.
Yeah.
And the Niners, I mean, you didn't even need a pass rush for half of the teams from the AFC. So, in fact, I think even the Bears probably could have done a pretty decent job. That probably would have been a better game, right? Because Caleb Williams is also inconsistent.
Yeah.
So the Bears made it, and it was still New England, or maybe, New England's probably still your best shot there. That probably would have been a better battle. I still think it would have been a defensive game because neither offense can figure it out. So, I didn't really see a scenario where the AFC really had a good shot in the Super Bowl.
And now this goes on. What moves would you like for your team to make? Moves would you like for your team to make it to the Super Bowl for this upcoming season?
Oh, go ahead, James.
Yeah, I think it's a much bigger project for Pittsburgh. Bo can just say run back, he's good.
I wanted to give you the most amount of time.
I appreciate that. There's some definite moves Pittsburgh needs to make here. Number one, they're going to have a hole at left guard because Isaac Seumalo is a free agent, so they need to address that. I would like them to address that fairly high in the draft. The glaring thing is wide receiver number 2. Teams that double team DK Metcalf basically shut down the Steelers offense. So you have to have a number 2 wide receiver who can take over in those situations and outperform most CB2s on most teams. I don't want them to do this in free agency. I want them to address that in the draft as well. I'd love a first or second round wide receiver. If somebody falls in that first round, maybe even trade up higher into the first round to try to get one of those elite guys like Tate or Jordan Tyson. One of these guys, go get one of those game changers that would be a number 1 on most teams that might end up your number 1 down the road, but right now can fall into the number 2 slot. Those are kind of 2 of the bigger things for me. They got to get younger at safety too. The safety room's a problem for them right now. Jalen Ramsey had some good games as a free safety, but everybody else that was on the roster last year was either a 30-year or older strong safety, or Deshaun Elliott was the best one in the room, but he missed most of the year injured. He'll be back next year, but again, he's also a strong safety only. So they've got to address that safety room. And I think with a legitimate wide receiver number 2, you ought to be able to keep a well-rounded offense going. But I expect Pittsburgh to address the wide receiver room pretty heavily in the draft, at least twice, maybe 3 times, because they have 12 draft picks. And when your wide receiver room is that devoid of talent, there's no reason to not just keep on taking guys and see what you hit. It has worked for them in the past. The year that they drafted Antonio Brown, he was the 6th round pick. He was the backup plan, though let's throw a dart at the board. Emmanuel Sanders was the 3rd round pick that same class. Emmanuel was plan A. He was the guy that was supposed to be your number 2 wide receiver, and very quickly they figured out that Antonio Brown was a better talent. But I think this is definitely one of those years that they need to address that position early and often, especially with a Mike McCarthy offense where he runs a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. If you're going into the season with 1 legitimate wide receiver option and a bunch of question marks, you need to fix that if you're going to be throwing a 3 wide receiver set on a regular basis.
Well, and you really can't have a 3 receiver set that, he has a lot of timing routes. and your one receiver ain't that dude. So you got to find some talent. It does kind of have to be in the draft for you guys though. You guys have not historically been great in free agency, especially getting receivers and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, drafting wide receivers, on the other hand, they've got a pretty good track record on that side.
Oh, they've been amazing.
That's why I want them to go that way. Now, we're going to find out real quick here if Mike Tomlin had anything to do with his success drafting wide receivers. Being a former wide receiver himself and a former secondary coach, sometimes you got a better eye for talent in those positions when it's something that you did at a college level, something that you coached against at the professional level. Maybe this had something to do with Mike Tomlin. We're going to find out because, the general manager's only been in place for a couple of years, and the wide receivers that they've taken under the new general manager have not been good. So there's a possibility it was the old general manager, but we're going to find out. They're going to draft some wide receivers. That's a fact.
I mean, and since we're talking about the Steelers, you should play the DK Metcalf clip because it's funny if you're a Seahawks fan.
The one that got I had a chance to play with some great players, man. Yeah. From Russ to, Bobby to Marshawn. Got a chance to Locke as well. Got a chance to meet some greats like Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman. But it's just time for me to move on. I think it's the grass is greener, on the other side.
Hey, that aged like milk.
Yeah, that's a bad look for him, man. You got to take that personal if you're him. Where Seattle's big move was getting rid of you, and then they go and win a Super Bowl.
Right?
That's a bad look for DK. I like him. Pittsburgh needed him. For them, it was an upgrade over George Pickens. I know that George Pickens went off, but he went off because he was a number 2 facing number 2 corners. When he did have to play the number 1 role, it didn't go well, and he had meltdowns in that game, and he had a poor performance. He should stay in Dallas. He can put up huge numbers there for a long time with Dak throwing him the football and CD is the number 1 wide receiver. He should stay there. But DK is what Pittsburgh needed.
No, I'm with you. I just thought it was funny. And I put together the video just because I was like, oh, this will make me laugh during the off season. But and yeah, to your point, one of the main moves was obviously, it was cap freeing to get rid of him, right? Because it was going to be $31 million. But yeah, I mean, when you dump DK, you feel bad for Lockett though. Lockett's the only guy I feel bad for that they got rid of because he came in 15, so he just missed the last Super Bowl run. And they let him go so he literally was the entire time between Super Bowls was Tyler Lockett's career.
Oh man.
So you feel a little bit bad for him because you're just like, oh man. But he was also going to be a $31 million cap hit, so it made sense. But and then if you're Geno, you might take that a little personal too, right? You get shipped out of town, you go and play some of the worst football of your career with the Raiders. And the team you just got bumped out of that, you're just like, you're not paying me enough, goes and wins a ring. Man, that's rough.
You got to wonder now, though, how much of Geno's success in Seattle was Geno versus a good coaching staff and wide receiver core. You have to wonder that. How much success has Geno had in his career outside of his year in Seattle? I feel like that was his best time as a starting quarterback was with you guys.
Yeah, his 3 years with us, obviously the receiving core was great. The 3 years with us as a starter anyway. But at the same time, you got to give him credit for some of that because we also had one of the worst offensive lines in the league the whole time. Right? They were a bottom 3 to bottom 5 offensive line the whole time he was there. So, I mean, that's honestly why we were worried about Darnold is we saw how he played behind bad offensive lines. Yeah. And then one of the first things they did when they went and got him was like, hey, we're going to fix our offensive line. You're like, Oh, I mean, okay. I feel like we probably could have done that to Gino and he would have been fine too. So obviously, in retrospect, totally fine with how it went down.
Yeah. You're right, though. You got to feel some kind of way if you're Gino and you're like, man, you never gave me an offensive line. I leave town, you bring in Charles Cross and Gray Zabel and really make some nice choices to solidify that offensive line. And he probably felt like he had five of the right guard there.
No, 100%. Yeah. And he kind of did, right? Because we already had Lucas and Cross. They got drafted while he was here, but they were hurt. Right. So then it was this like rotating cast in front of him. And of course, Bradford was one of those. So, they have that going for them. But yeah, I mean, they go get Zabel and then they go grab a couple of veterans for, center and a rotating piece at guard as well. And all of a sudden that bottom 3 to 5 unit became a, right around 10 to 12 unit. That's a huge turnaround in 1 year.
Sure is. And you can do a lot of things when you have an offensive line that registers in the top 10 to 12, Mm-hmm. That's a very capable unit at that point. What do you feel about Seattle? What are you looking at? Is Bradford like the big thing? You got to upgrade the right guard. What's the story?
I mean, yeah, but yeah, no, I mean, I don't know that you have to get rid of Bradford, right? Because like he has moments where you're like, okay, we're kind of seeing. I feel like his development just hasn't been fast, right? Yeah. Like when he's been good, but then when he's off, like he's diving at nobody, and so that's where you need depth at the offensive line position. Obviously he didn't get a lot of play time, like basically none in the championship game. And then in the Super Bowl, again, they didn't really let him play, and the offensive line got, significantly better. So I do expect that they're going to at least bring someone in to challenge for that position consistently. Outside of that, it's really going to depend on what these free agents do, because, obviously with Walker going away, you have to address a running back issue. Especially with Charbonnet going to miss half the year. Woolen, you just need another corner. I was actually kind of bummed when they got rid of Mike Jackson and kept Woolen. But then you also have like Boyamafe that is a free agent as well. So, you got some linebacker stuff you got to look at. So there are needs on this team to be able to try and run it back.
What would you prioritize out of those? Assuming, let's just say all of those dudes leave in free agency, what are you going after first? You're going after edge rusher, running back?
So I would be going after the offensive line.
Yeah.
I want more depth at the offensive line. I want to try and make that a top 5 unit, because then guys like Halani may not be the best back, but is effective. You give him a bigger hole, he can look a lot better than he is.
Yeah.
Right. Like when you think back to Seattle back in 2005, Sean Alexander wins the MVP, right? But they had the best left side of the line ever constructed. And so anytime he wasn't in, and it was Maurice Morris, who not a big back, not, incredibly fast, a smart running back. But when you could drive a tank through a hole, what he has? Big days. So yeah, if you can upgrade that line a little bit more, then you don't necessarily have to hit a home run with your running back, because you can kind of do it piecemeal until Charbonnet gets back. On the defensive side, it would be, you could go get a younger linebacker. Again, some of this stuff's going to have to happen in free agency, just because they don't have a lot of draft picks. So they're going to have to be very deliberate with what they go get. I do expect them to probably take a real look at a running back later, like maybe a 3rd round running back, something like that. They might even trade out of that 1st round. They may trade back. It's the last pick in the 1st round. So they may trade back with somebody that wants a 5th-year option on a guy, and, get that second for it, and maybe a 3rd, whatever kind of package they can get, just to try and collect a few more picks, because that 6th rounder wasn't even our pick. That was from a different trade. So, I mean, we only have 3 of our own picks.
Yeah, I think that would be a smart move for them with that small amount of draft capital. Like you mentioned, this is not an uncommon thing for people to trade up into that 32nd position. And sometimes you can get a haul for that number 32 pick because of that 5th-year option that you mentioned. That was exactly how the Ravens acquired Lamar Jackson. They traded up to number 32 to get back into the 1st round to be able to put that 5th-year option on him. That worked out quite well for them. It was a great selection. So who is it this year that somebody would value that much to trade up for? Who knows? But maybe it's something again in the quarterback room, because there's a lack of top-end talent, it looks like, in this draft class outside of Fernando Mendoza and some people like Ty Simpson. But after that, it seems to be a pretty large drop-off.
Yeah, I mean, most of your 1st-round picks are going to be in the trenches.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of your skill positions are all 2nd and later rounds.
Yeah, make sure your cooking staff is good, because these big boys are going to need to be fed well.
Real. Still awake back there, Nikki?
So, yeah. Okay, so for the Eagles, I mean, they got a lot of free agents. One of the big keys actually is to fix the playbook would be one for next season, because that was one of their weak points.
Yeah.
They still have a talented roster, but now you got guys, free agency, you got Jalen Phillips. He was a key piece as an edge. He's a guy you could bring in that could still help more in the long term, because JT Jr. is in Jeremiah Trotter Jr. It's a nice feel-good story, but outside of that, Jalen Phillips is the bigger long-term piece. There comes a point where it's like, all right, you have the feel-good story of being Trotter Jr., but there needs to be more than that in the long term. And then tight end room, you got 3 tight ends hitting the free agent market. Out of the 3, Goddard would be the main guy to keep, but due to his age and cap considerations, I could see the Eagles possibly looking for a tight end in the draft as a replacement. I'd have to look at some guys specifically, because they might want to get younger and start fresh, because Calaterra, well, we know he's not going to be the number 1 tight end as a reliable option.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see them maybe – I would like to have Goddard back, but due to the cap and him being a veteran, they might just want to get a younger tight end, start over, let Goddard go somewhere else. Best of luck in your future endeavors. Like that. I could see that. I mean, the linebacker room, I mean, if you bring back Jalen Phillips, you still got him. You still got Zach Bond on a deal. And then, of course, you got even your defensive line. You got what's his name? Oh, yeah, you got Jordan Davis had his best year thus far. As long as he stays out of the buffets during the offseason, should be pretty good there. Although you got Nakobe Dean. Although here's actually one position I would like to see. 2, actually. Defensive back, improve that secondary room. Either find a quality guy or draft someone to help, because outside of Quinyon Mitchell, who do you have that's a reliable option? Definitely not Keely Ringo.
Cooper DeJean.
I mean, he's a safety, though, too. You need a number 2 corner that's at least reliable.
Yeah.
And Adoree Jackson wasn't, I mean, he was more seasoned, but he wasn't that much better than Keely Ringo, really. And then here's another one. We'll save this for late in the draft. Get a new kicker to replace Jake Elliott, so you don't have to go for 2 or go for it on 4th and 2 in field goal range anymore. Because, yeah, Elliott was good while last, but they need a new kicker, though. And you can always find one of those at the end of the draft, so that should be an easy fix.
Unless you're New England, then that's the 1st or 2nd round guy.
And the Raiders, too, once in a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not forget Sebastian Janikowski.
Hey, that one worked out, though. That one worked out.
Yeah.
Yes, that was good.
What was that? The league's first 265-pound field goal kicker.
Absolute monster of a human. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
But an amazing kicker.
Yeah, that was a fun era, man, because back then nobody could kick a 50-plus yard field goal. Janikowski came in, and he had no problem with it.
Oh, yeah.
And then now 50 yards is just like a routine kick. And and most of the field goal kickers are like 185, 190 pounds, and they can kick it 70 yards with no problem. It's insane how much that's changed.
Yeah, the difference between what they let them do with the footballs has definitely changed the way kicks have happened, right? Like 50, 55, and I mean, that was the outside of the range and best of luck. And then you're seeing the same kickers now hitting from 65, no problem. And you're like, okay, there might be something to them getting to prep the ball way differently than they used to, because I mean, it just pops off their foot now.
No doubt about that. Nikki, I got a couple ideas for you for your Eagles. Number one, if you need a tight end, Jonnu Smith is available. We're willing to give him up for a Happy Meal. That's plenty as far as trade compensation. And then I don't know if you've seen this or not. There's another trotter coming out in this year's draft class. This is the younger brother of the one that you've got on the squad right now. So you could have another trotter and collect them all just like Pokemon.
That is hilarious.
I mean, it's possible, but I would have to look into it first to see if that's something I would actually want, because it sounds cool at first, but I want to see if this guy's actually suitable, can fill the role in the field.
Time, you don't.
He's another big thumper, just like the other one.
Yeah.
So
I'm
but
curious what you guys are going to do with that offensive line, getting rid of one of the more dominant offensive line coaches, over the last 15 years.
Right. I know is it going to become a self-coach situation? Kind of like, ironically, the Cowboys with Barry Switzer in terms of the offensive line side of it. We'll see. Or maybe they do find a suitable replacement. But I do know one guy, though, Fred Johnson's a free agent. I would like to see him come back. He was actually an underrated piece of that line over the past couple of years.
The other coach I was surprised to see leave, obviously your offensive line coach, that one was a shock to me. But James, your special teams coach getting let go was a huge surprise to me, because that was the one unit that was actually good.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. Yeah, it's one of the things I warned Steelers fans of, because so many of them were so gung-ho about getting rid of Mike Tomlin that they didn't think about the foresight of who else would leave when that happens. Usually when your head coach leaves, there's a massive turnover within the coaching staff. Yeah, it's rare that a lot of guys stay. In the end, our quarterbacks coach and our middle linebackers coach were the only two guys that are on the new staff. And I specifically warned the folks on my podcast, because a couple of them are from Edinburgh, which is just south of Erie, Pennsylvania here. And Danny Smith went to Edinburgh University, so he went to the college there. So obviously people in our area absolutely love Danny Smith. He's an amazing special teams coach, but Danny was doing it on his own with no assistant. And the one problem Pittsburgh had was the return unit.
Yeah.
Kicking game was great. Chris Boswell's been incredible. The coverage unit's been out of this world. They've had guys going into the Pro Bowl on a regular basis just because of their kick coverage capabilities. This year, Ben Skoranek went. Previous years, Miles Killebrew was going on a regular basis. They were scheming up multiple punt and kick blocks every single year, but they just couldn't get a return game together to save their lives. This year, I think their two starting return men on kickoffs were ranked 56th and 58th out of all kick return men, which is pretty awful that many guys on that many other teams ranked above your two guys. They just can't figure that part out. So,
well, and it's funny because it wasn't even a problem with once they caught the ball. Like, they were actually pretty good at the returns. It was just, you guys muffed kicks like nobody's business. That was crazy to me. And I don't know that that's even a coaching point. Like, you got to catch the ball.
Yeah. They made a calculation at the beginning of the year, assuming that the rookie running back Caleb Johnson would be able to handle kickoff returns. Obviously, we found out in the Seattle game that he just couldn't handle it at all. He had a couple times where he fumbled the ball and then decided in the Seattle game he just wasn't even going to field it and let it go over his head. And you guys get an easy touchdown off of a kickoff, which is just an unheard of thing.
That was wild.
Yeah, he just decided not to even go for the ball. So after that point, they went with Kenny Gainwell and Jalen Warren as their kick return man. So now your two starting running backs are your kick returners, and neither one of them is at their specialty. It's just they needed guys that would be able to field the ball cleanly and at least go get 20 yards. So that's all they cared about at that point. But now you're talking about not having anyone who has any concern of breaking a kickoff return. It was never at any point in time this season that anyone was ever worried about our kick return unit breaking one against them. Just send your guys down there and you'll get them by the 25-yard line. Like it was so they have to address that this offseason. They have to get a legitimate return man or two so that you're not marching your top running backs out there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to see Caden Weejet from Iowa, man. I want to see that kid returning kicks for us.
I'm surprised you guys didn't have MVS doing it. Like you got him. He's a speedster guy. He's not great when it comes to, the passing game anyway. So I don't know, his catch percentage is like 50-50. So I don't know why you wouldn't have used him in that instance, because he would have been great in that way. But they're just like, yeah, you know what? Your hands are like stone. So I guess sit down, which is funny because the guys you sent out there, kind of similar. I don't know. It seems like I would have given MVS at least a few tries at it.
I would have liked to have seen anything different, honestly.
That's fair. That's fair.
At one point in time during the season, they brought a practice squad guy up by the name of Kayshawn Williams, and he had a couple of exciting returns. But then I think he ended up having a fumbling issue, so they just released him and moved on in that direction. So, MVS didn't give us anything on offense, so it would have been something at least if he was able to return some kicks. That would have been nice to. You don't want to start your offensive drive off with both of your starting running backs, your number one and number two, you're basically splitting the ball 50-50 between. Both of them are already tired because of the kick return.
Exactly.
Like, that's just not setting yourself up for success at the beginning of your drive.
Yep. Absolutely. I know we're close to the end here, so you should play the full Ernest Jones clip just to wrap this thing up on a funny note.
And then we do a few trivia questions after that. These are kind of easy ones.
Oh, no. Do the trivia questions first.
All right. So here we go. This one. Which quarterback was franchise tagged twice by Washington before leaving in free agency for the Vikings in 2018?
Oh, that's Cousins. That's easy.
Yeah, Kirk O'Shea.
Exactly. Well, I think he's also just one of the only QBs to ever be franchised twice.
Yeah.
Yep. And the next question, which team signed Chandler Jones in 2022 after he left the Arizona Cardinals?
Was that when he went to the Patriots?
It was more out west.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess I don't know offhand.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have any other good guesses.
It was a team in the AFC.
Was it like a Chargers or something?
It's same division, so warmer.
Raiders,
yep.
Okay.
And then last but not least, I think you guys know this one. Which quarterback did the 49ers give up 3 first-round picks to get in 2021?
Oof, man, that Trey Lance trade was rough.
Yeah. Forever goes down as a pretty bad look for them.
Hey, kudos to their front office for not doubling down on it, though. As soon as they realized they didn't have their guy, they were just like, hey, you know what?
Yep.
Yeah, because it's a lot easier to say, nope, we just got to give him more time. This kid's going to be fine.
Yep.
It's a lot tougher to admit that you made that mistake and move on and go get another guy.
Yep, and they certainly did. So, everyone, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. Before we go off, we got a little clip for you guys that Bo was kind enough to share with us. So, here we go.
This was
I'm going to keep it a book. I'm probably the last person that should have gave the mic to. The people that turned up, man. First off, I want to say shout out to Jody Allen. Shout out to John love Mike McDonald for helping us get to this point. And but also, shout out to these badass motherfuckers who take the game. Not only do we have the best defense in the world, we got the best team in the world. And quite frankly, if you got anything to say for my quarterback, you got anything to say for my defense, you got anything to say for our O-line, and you got anything to say about the city of Seattle, I got two words for you. Fuck you!
I figured that was a good way to wrap up the Super Bowl show.
All right. If you guys got anything you want to share before we go, floor is yours.
Go ahead.
Yeah, nothing crazy for me, man. Just off-season talk. We're getting into scouting combines right around the corner here, about a week and a half away from the NFL scouting combine. So an exciting time of year for mock drafts and that sort of thing.
All right, we got Tuesday's my big day at noon. Got the 3-Point Blitz episode 47, and then at 8, you got Everything on the Table. Steve's an Agent with me and Agent Warrior X on the network. Both those coming Tuesday. Now we're going to kind of switch from my shows a little bit more into basketball, being mid-February into March. So we'll see a slight switch in content there. We'll still get some free agency discussion, but we're going to talk a little more about basketball there as well now that we're in football off season.
Yeah, and I'm with you there too. Like our daily show, we're going to be talking more well-rounded sports now that football is done. Of course, the Olympics, and then we're starting to look into next month where you start having some actual MLB stuff happening. You got March Madness, obviously. And of course, you have the beginnings of Major League Rugby and arena football, and all that stuff is starting to kick off, by the end of March. So lots of stuff coming up, but we do have this couple of week lull where you have the sadness of the end of the NFL.
All right, guys. So thanks for tuning in. For Nikki, Steves, James, and Bo, have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll catch you next week. Peace.